Welcome everyone, good evening. We are in Parsha Vaeira, and it's in Exodus chapter 9 verse 14. And here we go, according to the Kliyakar. Let's read the verses first. For this time, I shall send my plagues against your heart. Now, I skipped one word. Which word did I skip? All, the word all. Can you believe this? For this time I shall send all my plagues against your heart and upon your servants and your people, so that you shall know that there is none like me in all the world. How can it be? This time he's sending all his plagues. He's sending one plague, the plague of hail, barad. Okay, if you read on, you know it's one plague. For this time I shall send all my plagues against your heart. Ki bapam hazot, this time, ani sholeach et kol magefotai, I'm sending all of my plagues, el libcha, upon your heart, uba'avadecha, and upon your servants, uba'amecha, and your people, ba'avur teda, so you will know, ki ein kamoni b'kol haaretz, there's no one like me in all the world. Now, I gave you two different versions of Rashi. And why is that? Because that's what we're going to be discussing in the beginning. What exactly is going on here? So Rashi in the Art Scroll, as opposed to Chabad, the Art Scroll says, Lamadnu mikan, we learn from here. We're talking about where the coming plague is referred to as all my plagues. Shemaka Bakoros, that the plague of, what does that mean? Bakoros, with a patach, as the ripening of the grain, right? The plague against the early ripening crops is going to be equal to the severity of all the other plagues. Shekula keneged kol hamakos. Now we're going to read the comment in a second, but look at what the Chabad website says. Against, this is a hint to the idea that this plague is worse than what? I don't have it in front of me. Oh yes, I do. We learn from here the plagues of the firstborn are equivalent to all the plagues. What's going on here? That this plague of the first fruits, the grains, right? The hail is going to affect the grains. That's what we're dealing with right now. Okay, locusts is going to come later. We're going to discuss that. But this plague is the worst because it's going to affect the grains, or this plague, not really this plague, but the plague, the 10th plague, which is against the firstborn, is worse than all of them. I mean, what would you say? So we have a major issue here, and if we look at the comment below of the Art Scroll, it all depends on where the vowelization is. So the Kliyakar brings down the Ra'im. Let's go into the Kliyakar right away. Perish Rashi, Lamanu Shemakat Bekoros, meaning the one the Chabad brought down, that we learned that the plague against the firstborn is parallel, is equivalent to all the other 9 plagues. However, Perish Hara'ain, that's the Eliyahu Mizrahi, he brings down the word Bakuros, not as Bikoros, of a Bakaros, which means the first of the ripe fruits. So the bait has a patach, and it's a totally different word. Why? If you notice, and if you go to Exodus chapter 9 verse 31, it's actually hitting, right? It's affecting the ripened barley and flax. It is affecting it. Like it says, Ki hasara aviv. Those words, if you look at 9:31, the flax and the barley were struck, for the barley was ripe, and the flax was still in its stalk. We're going to be saying these words over and over again for many lessons to come tonight. So keep in mind, you have this major discussion of Rashi. What exactly is the lesson to be learned here? And if we go down into the comment of the art scroll, it's very interesting. The text here has been vowelized according to the Eliyahu Mizrahi, that's the art scroll, who says it should be read as Makat Bakuros, the plague of the early ripening crops, which is what the hail did. The plague of hail struck the crops that had already begun to bloom, and the truth is they were already ripe. Other commentaries read it as Makas Bakuros, the plague of the firstborn, and are therefore perplexed, meaning the Eliyahu Mizrahi is perplexed. How can this verse be said to teach anything about the plague of the firstborn? The next plague is certainly not the plague of the firstborn. We said the next plague is the plague of locusts. According to Rav Heschel of Krakow, there's an error in our text of the Rashi. We're not talking about the Torah. The Torah scroll is the same. We're asking what is the pshat. And if the text of Rashi originally had a mem bet, which would have stood for makat barad, which makat barad is, you're talking about the plague of hail. But maybe the typesetter, the copyist, erroneously misinterpreted as makas bekoros. That's one interpretation. According to others, it doesn't read like either one, but rather makas betzurat, as a plague of hunger, because what happens when the crops are ruined? The crops being ruined would cause a famine and a hunger in the land. Okay, now that we have that as a basis for our discussion, we'll go back into the Kliyakar. And he says, when it said in the third line down, Ki hasara hadi, we're talking about the barley that's still in the ear of the corn, meaning it's hidden. It is hidden. It is somehow covered, but it's ripe. Rashi says, Bichro Kvar, it's already ripe. However, Yesh Goyshim, some are going to bring a text, as we already saw in that comment of Rashi, Bitzoros, famine, instead of the word Bikoros, instead of the word firstborn. Ki habarad garam lehem haraav ubatzoros. The hail itself was the reason for the famine and the lack of food. So too, Yitzhak Abarbanel brings the same pshat. Okay, now, we are going to settle this. Mekom mekom lo shakta rayon shoel. Nevertheless, nothing we said so far is able to settle the issue and the question that is really being asked. What's pshat? Lama hayata makazu gedola min kol makos. The real question is, why is this, if we're going to read it as the first fruits, the first of the barley, the ripened barley, why is this makkah, why is this plague going to be so severe than all the other 9, including the firstborn? You have the firstborn and 8 others on one side of the scale, and you have this makkah of hail all by itself, that it's equal, that it's worse than or greater than all the others. The Elomar do not say Shehi Gedola Machmas Hadhala Gedola Abo Min Kol Hashem Choytze B'Havos Eish. Perhaps we're not going to say what you might be thinking. I know you're thinking this, that there was this great voice, this great howling, this it put Pharaoh into a very bad state. This plague is so great that it put Pharaoh into a Havhala Gedola, a great state of confusion. Because if you look in Psalms 29:7, it talks about the fiery voice of God. Kol Hashem Chotzev Lahavos Eish. I mean, that's a beautiful psalm. We sing it Friday night, and there's so many coals that are quite frightening. Ki Hema Devarim Mavhilim Bemet. If you look through that whole psalm, you have 15 times the word kol is used. If that's the case, so we're stuck with the question, why in the world would Rashi tell us that it has something to do with the destruction of the first fruits through the hail or famine? Is it not V'haloah kolos ikar havhala? when you think about a tremendous fear and confusion, you're talking about the voice of God. Wouldn't that be the ikar, the main cause for massive confusion? In fact, he says v'adarabba. In fact, the opposite, right? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense that the ruining of the barley and the flax is a reason to be so confused and put into shock. I like the word shock. The imlokain makas arba tiyesh kula kol hamakos. If that's the case, then the next plague, which is the locust, which is going to destroy even more grains that weren't even destroyed in the hail, that would put people into even more shock if we're talking about the grains being the main cause. And that's not the case. It says this one, by hail. Sharei achal mashi hishir habarad. Those locusts ended up eating all that remained from the barad. Just because the barad came didn't mean that everything was not consumable. You could still probably consume, just it would be harder to harvest. It must be that wasn't really their concern. The fact is, it's very clear that it was only the barley and the flax that was affected, but the wheat and the spelt had not yet been affected. So if that's the case, we're really stuck with that original question. The verse itself says, I just want to go back to the verse, for this time I shall send all my plagues against your hearts. And Rashi tells us that this plague is worse. It's like compared to all the plagues. It's one plague, but it's compared, because of the word all, it's compared to all the plagues. And we're stuck with the question, why is that the case? Hine, kfi hapshat, according to the simple explanation, nuchal liyashev zeh, we're able to resolve this. Shebamachas bekoros, mamish yidaber. According to the Kliyakar, it's for sure talking about the firstborn son. Hello? We saw in Rashi there's already a different opinion. But he's convinced it's really talking about the firstborn in actuality. And you can examine it. Watch this. It says in our verse, Ki hapam hazot, this time, ani sholeach et kol magefotai, I am sending all my plagues el libcha. And this is the plague of hail. So how can it be that we're talking about the firstborn? Lama lo nemar loshon el libcha b'shum maka chutz mibazeh. He's asking a great question. Why does it not have the language to your, I'm sending all my plagues to your heart. The words to your heart only appear in this plague and no other plague. Because the truth is, this is how he explains it. He wants to, this is what Moses is trying to tell him, this is what God is trying to tell Pharaoh, that in the order, okay, now this is how it works. If you know the Haggadah, not only do we mention the 10 plagues, but we group them together into memorizational things. So we have 3, 3, and 4. They're really groups of 3, and the last one is somehow tagged on, added on. So what he's about to tell us is that the last group of 4, we're about to get into it, right? So you have the barad. So it's the first of the last of the 4. So, right, so what's the last one of the 4th? The firstborn. This is the first of the last 4, which is a similar word. Remember, it's almost like a double entendre. They're both true, but we're not talking about this plague. We're really talking about the firstborn, which really applies to the first fruit. The ready-made fruit. Watch what he's going to say. That in the order of Bet Aleph Chet Bet, that's the last 4, Ani sholeach lecha macha achat. As we're beginning the last triad, I don't know if that's a word. As we're beginning the last set, and I'm starting with the barad, it's going to end. I want you to know that in the barad, there's a hint to what's going to happen later on in the last of the 4 plagues, which is the last of the last 4, which is the firstborn, Bechorot. I'm sending you this one plague, Shetiyeh Goremet, that it itself causes what? She'im Chachamata, Mr. Pharaoh, if you're smart, Azai Titein El Libcha, you will then put upon your heart, meaning you'll pay attention. Machas Bechoros, the last of the plagues, the plague of the firstborn, that's going to be the end of this set, the 4 last, right? You got it? There's 3, and then there's the last set, Bet Aleph Chet Bet. I'm giving you warning now. Do you know that God gave Pharaoh warning about the firstborn before any of the plagues even came? Look in chapter 4, verse 23. This is way before any of the plagues. He says, Hine anochi hoyreg es bincha b'chorecha. Behold, after you don't let my people go, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to slay your firstborn son. So there already was a warning, and this is coming as another warning. This is the right before the plague of hail, which again we're referring to hitting the barley and the flax, right? Which is the ripened fruit that was ready to go. Like Rashi says there, if you want to look at Rashi. Lefi shebapam hahu, at that time, lo hir Yerushalayim bara'azu. Pharaoh did not pay attention. He didn't feel it. He didn't consider it. He didn't relate to this evil that did not yet happen. This great plague that will happen sometime in the future. Lefish lo roto, he did not even envision it. It wasn't on his head. It wasn't on his mind. Ki im kol devarim bilvad hayashomea. He was just listening to words. He wasn't listening to the message. The message was, I'm going to kill your firstborn before anything even started. Therefore, we know he did not pay attention. He didn't do tshuva. He wasn't persuaded to repent because of the kol, the words, which is a little bit of a play on words. If you look at Proverbs 30, verse 30, the word really in the verse is kol, as in all. But the word kol, as in voice, it's spelled differently, but it's exactly the same pronunciation. Therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Ki akshav, right now, ani sholech lecha maka bibikurei tzemach ha'adamah. Okay, you didn't pay attention then when I told you I'm going to kill your firstborn. I'm going to send this plague that's going to kill what? The firstborn ripened things that are produced from the land. V'yodeani, I know, shebamaka zu yelechatzar ma'od, yoter mikol hamakos hakodmim. I know that this plague of killing the fruit that's ripened, ready to be eaten, is going to affect you greatly because there's something about people that like ripe fruit. Let me translate it exactly. Yodea ani, I know that this plague will be a great pain for you, more than all the previous plagues. Lefi shekol pri shenidbaker, because all the fruits that are ripened, chaviv ala adam bioter, are very dear, very endearing to a person. Kamoshit Bayer Bezrat Hashem, like he's going to explain in Kitavo, when he discusses the mitzvah of bringing the first fruits. Why? What kind of feeling a person has when he brings his first fruits. We're not going to go into it now, but you can imagine. We're talking about having such gratitude and recognition towards Hashem. And the proof is this, and the proof for what we're saying is during this plague, Pharaoh himself admits, he makes an admission, which is interesting because during the bringing of the first fruits, there's also a vidoy, there's also a confession. And he says, Chatasi hapam. He says in chapter 9, verse 27, right here, he says, I have sinned this time. He makes this confession. But he doesn't say this for any of the previous plagues. Amar came bekol hamakas hakodmim. He hadn't said this previously. Why? Because right now he's in a great amount of pain for losing all those ripe fruits. Shehuku haperos shenizbachru tachila. Because the plague affected the fruits that had already been ripened. Mechamat shehem chavidim ala adam bioter. Because as we know, these are very endearing. The person gets a lot of pleasure from his ripened fruits. B'pri tzemach ha'adama kach. This is the fruits that grow from the ground. And now we're going to do a kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer means how much more so. It's an a priori argument. It's a logical argument. If this is true, that a man is affected by the ruination, if that's a word. I know abomination is a word, but abomination. So, ruination, how much more so would he be upset by the fruit of the womb? Very nice. Kal v'chomer b'pri bitnecha kama gadol hatzar b'mitas bincha b'chorecha. How much more so by the fruit of the womb, how great the pain would be through the death of your firstborn son. Im ad heina lo hirgashta b'davar. God is saying, if up until now you didn't feel it, you didn't perceive it, guess what? Hine b'pam hazot, this time, shani make et b'korei tzemach adama, when I am going to destroy the first fruits of the ground, azai titenes libcha, you're going to put it upon your heart, you're going to pay attention, et kol magefotai, to all of my plagues. Which one plague is equal to all? The firstborn at the end. It's no contradiction. It's like, you follow what I'm saying? It's one and the same. What is it about the machos bekoros, the plague of killing the firstborn? It's prihabetin. It's the fruit of the womb. Kame gadol atzar. How great is that pain? Va'al ze ne'emar, regarding this, that's our verse. Ki bapam hazot, it's this time, ani sholech et kol megefotai. I am sending all of my plagues against you. Meaning, machas bekoros, the plague of the firstborn, of the fruit of the womb, shall prihabetin. El libcha, against your heart, the verse says, shititein libcha, I want you to put it on your heart, pay attention, litbonein, and to really understand, the lidrosh kavachomer, and come out with this clear, a priori, this logical conclusion. She'im bikurei priyadamako chakadol hatzar, that if the ruination of the fruits that are ripened to the coming and spring out of the ground is causing me such great distress, because we know that they're so valued by man, so then there's a kal v'chomer. There's this logical conclusion, the bekure pri bidnecha, you should come to the conclusion, your own conclusion, what's going to happen to your firstborn son, if you didn't get it when I first told you from the beginning. The im kain shapir kama Rashi, and if that's true, then everything works out with Rashi, because Rashi, according to one opinion, Rashi is saying that it's the actual firstborn that is parallel, equivalent, literally, to all the other plagues. Shreya katuv kara. Remember, the verse actually says all of my plagues. V'chein hu memet, and it's true. Sharei bekulam lo nichna Paro. In all of them, Paro did not submit. When did he submit finally? The last one. He actually submitted. Ki'im b'machas b'choros. The only one he totally submitted to was the last one of the firstborn. And now we understand and it answers and resolves what we originally asked when the verse says, for some reason the verse needed to say, V'hapishta v'hasaura nucha'a. The flax and the barley were smitten. Ki hasa'ara aviv. For the barley was in the ear, meaning it was ripe. Kvar bichra, it was already ripe. And this is a very precious explanation. Now I have to tell you, we're going to go deep. We covered 1/4 of the material. Okay? It's going to go very deep. Outside Haremez, from the aspect of a hint, it seems like we can explain it in the following way. According to what he himself writes above, in chapter 7, verse 17, but he's going to write it, Shemaka habarad v'hakolos bo leparo ala shelorot lishmoa b'kol Hashem bahadar. Now, this, we only imagine barad. It's a piece of ice with a flame, which already is miraculous. But there was another dimension. There was a tremendous amount of thunder. There was, I can't even imagine, screeching. There was, well, it was the sound, look in Psalms 29, verse 4. It was God's voice in its majesty. The word kol is thunder, is God's voice in its majesty. So this Makkah, this plague of Barad, included thunder that came to Paro because he did not want to listen to the kol. He didn't want to listen to God's voice in majesty, so God brought it to him in a interesting way. Al kain hishmi Hashem la'azno. That's why God made the sound into his ears, kolos noroyim uvahilim, fearful and terrible thunder. That's right, awesome thunder. L'chein haya mizvade dafka b'chet zeh. When Pharaoh confesses, look in 9:27. He says God is righteous. Hashem is hatzadik. He's righteous. Va'ani va'ami rishoyim. Me and my people were evil. Tachat asher kachesh b'Hashem. He's admitting, right? This was his vidoy, because he was denying Hashem. V'yomer lohu. He was saying it wasn't God. God is not God. Hayachote b'kol. So he actually sinned with his own voice. He sinned with his own mouth. His lips moved to say these words. V'siper lashon hara al boro. He was speaking lashon hara about the creator of the universe. Al kenidu b'kolos. That's why he's going to be judged with the word kolos, which is thunder, the voice. Voice and thunder. It's God's voice, God's thunder. He's going to be judged through this. Just like, you know, the Metzora is a leper. What happens? The person spoke lashon hara. That's why he became a leper. When he's finished his leprosy and he's cured and he's did tshuva, so then what happens? He's to bring birds. One he sends away. The other one is offered up, and shemevi tziporim ha'oisi maseko. Why are the birds used as the atonement offering for the person who spoke lashon hara? Because that's what birds do. They walk, they tweets, 140 characters or less. Okay, so you can do a lot of damage in a 104. Maybe they raised it to 180. I have no idea. But so the birds are brought because the action was done with the voice. So therefore it's lachaper al kol. Therefore the bird is brought to atone for the kol, the voice of the one who spoke lashon hara. That's why it says, now in our chapter 9, verse 29, it says, now we're going to examine this carefully. Hakolos yechdalun the thunder ceased, v'habarad lo ye'od, and the hail will not be, it won't be anymore. So the Kliyakar asked a great question. He's puzzled. Vikasha, la'arvinahu v'lisninuhu. Why are they separate? Why are you telling me the thunder shall stop and the hail will be no more? Put them together. Put the thunder and the hail together and say the thunder and the hail stopped, and or the thunder and the hail will be no more. Why are there two different descriptions? The thunder will stop and the hail will be no more. I'll just read the words. Hakolos v'barad yechdalun or lo ye'od. He wants to know why they're split. Let them be together, and then describe one action against them both. Elishekach amar Moshe leParo, because this is really what Moses was telling Paro. Ma titzach alayim. Why Pharaoh was telling him, begging him to pray to God to have everything stop. So Moses is like, why are you crying to me, telling me that I should cry? I should pray to God. Ma titzak alai lemor atiru el Hashem im tashu midarkecha. If you, Paro, if you would repent from your evil ways, v'lo tashmiya b'chutz kolcha, and not have expressed this blasphemy out loud, if you would have not spoken kol onos b'cherufim gedufim kalpe mala, and spoke this blasphemous and reveling words towards Hashem by saying, look in Exodus 32, no, that was the other one, sorry. When he asked me Hashem, he actually says, who is God? This is the chutzpah of Pharaoh. He uses these words, mi Hashem. Az mamela habarad lo ye'od. If you would have gotten your own act together, Moses telling him, and stopped speaking against God and instead recognize God, then automatically the barad would end, would cease, would be no more. Ki besor hasibah, this is very important. When you remove the cause, when the cause is actually removed, yosur gama mesubah, then you get rid of the bad results. If there's a sin, get rid of the sin, and the resultants will fall away. And now we understand when it says, Kishakolos shecha yechdalun. What Moses was telling him was when your voice stops, az mamela, then automatically the barad lo ye'od. Then, as a result, the barad would cease, would be no more. Laman teda ki Hashem haaretz, in order that you should know that God, the whole earth belongs to God. And when you, Pharaoh, return in tshuva, lo kasher amarta b'tchila mi Hashem, not like you originally said, who is God? What a chutzpah to ask such a question. Okay, now, ulefi shechet zeh haya b'lashon, since this sin of Pharaoh was all in the mouth, who is God? And his chutzpah. Did you know this? That when you sin with speech, when you speak Lashon Hara and you sin with speech, it magnifies our sins as if they were equal to the three cardinal sins. Remember, the first temple was destroyed because of the three cardinal sins? And you know what they are. We'll talk about them in a second. Whereas the second temple was destroyed only because of Lashon Hara, causeless hatred. So a whole temple, number 2, is equal to temple 1 in the sense that it was destroyed for just one sin, whereas temple 1 was destroyed for 3 sins. So when you speak Lashon Hara, when you use your tongue to sin with, it magnifies the sin to be parallel to the 3 cardinal sins. What are they? Idol worship, that's avodah zarah, idol worship. Giloi arayas, sexual immorality. And 3, shvikat damim, murder, the spilling of blood. And guess what? The kol haTorah b'klal, the whole Torah is compared, if you violate these things, it's like you're violating the entire Torah. Ki kol hamoide b'avodah zara, how do we know this? That anybody that acknowledges idols, the power of the idol, or tolerates it, kikoyfer b'kol Torah, that we're taught that you're a denier of the whole Torah. And if that's the case, min haroi, it's certainly reasonable and fitting, shabal halashon, that the slanderer, yanidon b'kol hamisos, wow, that the one who speaks lashon hara should suffer the death of the 4 types of death that the Beis Din would mete out. Now I just want to tell you something. We don't have a Sanhedrin today. There is no death penalty in this world, but Hashem still allows it to take place in His, He plays it out. If, for example, if someone is supposed to die from stoning, he may fall off a cliff, he may fall off a ladder. Someone is supposed to die by suffocation, he might drown. Hashem has His ways of making these things all play out. But He's very patient. He wants to see you do repentance. So let's go into this. Why is it, and how does it work, that if someone speaks lashon hara, someone sins, and the slanderer sins with their mouth, they are fitting to be punished by all 4 deaths? Ki onesh avodah zara, we already know that someone who worships idols, he gets stoned, skila. And guess what? If someone blasphemes Hashem, the same punishment. The Megadef also gets stoned. Onesh of Shvichas Damim, if somebody committed murder, they're killed by the sword. Sayef, Beherev, they're killed by the sword. V'oneshtam Gili Arayis, if someone is involved in sexual immorality, the general principle for death is chenach, is strangulation. There is an exception by the daughter of a Kohen who was found to be mezaneh, sexually involved in immoral behavior. So we burn her, sreifa. So we can see that the 3 big sins actually encompass all 4 of the different types of death through the Beis Din. Im kein matzinus, so what do we find? Shekol arba mitzos Beis Din, that those 4 types of death that the Beis Din will mete out is shayachim b'shlosh rashi averos elu, will be fulfilled when somebody transgresses any one of the 3 capital crimes. Al kemin aroi, so therefore it's certainly fitting, Shabbat lashon hara nidon b'kol magevos halalu. Notice now he's changing the word from death penalty to plagues. So then it's certainly fitting that the slanderer will be judged with all these plagues. So I don't know where he's going with it. Ki hu shikul keneged kulam, since he, the slanderer, is equal to all of them. Now we understand when God says, Ki b'pam hazot ani sholech kol megovotai. For this time, our verse, this time, I'm going to send all my plagues. All my plagues, because you were blaspheming, because you were involved with the avodah zara, because you were involved with all the different things. Really, it's, what do we say? The speech is magnified to being equal to all of the capital crimes. So we find that when the plague of hail, Dugma lekol arba misos Beis Din, the actual barat itself, when we investigate what happened with that plague, the plague of hail, it actually plays out the 4 types of death. Why? Skila, how is it that the rocks, right, that means stoning, how was the hail equivalent to rocks being thrown? Dugma, as an example, it is Yored Aleim Barad. The way the Barad came down, they were like, I don't know what size they were. They could have been like softballs, which are pretty big, but they came down like rocks. And I want you to go look at Ezekiel 38:22. The word over there is the Avnei al-Gabish. Al-Gabish, Avnei means stones, al-Gabish is hailstones. Yisakel, V'sachi Yisakel Tam. Look at the words. in the Hebrew, they were stoned by these hailstones. So we can see within the concept of hailstones how it comes down like rocks. And also, what about burning? We already said that in the ice there was some type of flame or fire. So look at chapter 9, verse 23. It says the fire came down to earth. We're talking about parad, we're talking about hail. The tihalach eish arza, a fire came down to earth. So within the hail there was fire as well. And if you look in Psalms 78, verse 47, it says, Yaharog babarad gafnam. The word Yaharog has to do with cutting off. It means their vines will be killed by the hail. Yaharog babarad gafnam. The hail itself will cut off, like the same word we used for decapitation and beheading with the sword. Lashon hariga ain't a shaykh begefen. We already know you don't have a cutting off in the terms of killing when you're talking about vines. So that word over there in Psalms 78, 47 is very strange. But rather it hints to people. La'an anshehem hayikarim shenimshlu gefen. It's talking about a very special, unique people who are compared to the Geffen. And who are those people, those unique individuals who are compared to the Geffen? We already know. In Psalms 80, verse 9, it talks about the Jewish people. Geffen mi Mitzrayim tasiyah. You have brought a vine out of Egypt. We are considered the grapevine. So yes, there will be a time where Jews have to be killed. V'chenech, and what about strangulation? Hainu b'riboy mayim. When you have hail, what happens to hail? Does hail stay forever as ice? No, it melts. So there must be a lot of water that came down with the barad. Ki ulai nitba'u k'tzatam b'sadeh bimtar habarad. There's no question that several people must have drowned as a result of the rainfall that comes down with the barad. Because as I mentioned, when there is no Beis Din, or the Beis Din can't prosecute somebody, and someone is liable to be strangled, the Gemara brings down that they're likely to be drowned in a river. So chenech is also, or let's say the concept of drowning, took place during barad as well. So it says, V'hika habarad et ma shenitbaker techila, that the hail destroyed, it struck what was the first ripe fruits. They were ripened fruits and grains. Takader shalach paro yad, because it was Pharaoh that attacked verbally Lashono b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He himself. And who is God? God is the firstborn of the world. He is the world. There is no world without him. He is Bakurei Shel Olam. He is the firstborn of the world. Kedisa b'Sefer Navei Shalom, as brought down in a book called Navei Shalom. The Agav Zehodia Lana Katuv. He brings down this verse that it's in chapter 9, verse 31, where it says the flax and the barley were smitten. Shapishta v'hasora nukasa. Now, afapish pshuto mashma. Even though the plain meaning of this verse, we're going to get into some really deep stuff here. The plain meaning of the verse, the flax and the barley were smitten. Remember, we kind of left it in the very first paragraph as one of the main lessons, but we didn't really go into it. Now we're going to do that. Shabadol hodia lanu agav. It's coming to inform us, by the way, as a side point, Shekashem shehukasa hapishta, that just as the flax was destroyed, mitzad hayota omedus bekasheha. Now, what is it about those things? The barley and the flax were ripened. When they're ripe, they're not flexible. When they're in the early stages of growth and they're very green, they're very flexible. So if the hail had come then, it wouldn't have destroyed them. But when it's hard and stiff and the hail comes, it will just break it. Okay? Now the wheat and the spelt were early, it was still early. They were still flexible. So we're going to discuss this whole idea now. What the flax and the barley were stiff. They were smitten because they were stiff. Kach huka paro al kishe arpo. So too, Paro was smitten because he was stiff-necked. He was stubborn. Kigvul zeh, like this stalk. Nakomakom agav orchenu. It just is related incidentally. Bo nami lahodia mi the mi hamukim velokim and the kablim nezik min bali lashon hara. We're going to learn what kind of people, that includes all of us, are beaten up and whipped and received, like are affected and damaged because of slander. And who is free, who's not affected, which is not all of us, but we can learn how. This is we're going to learn the secret. Who is affected by Lashon Hara and how we can defeat the damage caused by Lashon Hara against us. Okay? Both in Shia Hakol Mida Keneged Mida. And we're going to learn all of this in the same fashion we always learn things, measure for measure. Because God is a just God. Nothing comes down the pike that is not just. So anyone that is receiving, on the receiving end of the damage from an outcry of slander, min kol anos shel ba'alei halashon, keneged zehu ko gamotam tzumachim hadoimim lo min kol habarad. So parallel to this is he's hit also, he'll be struck like the same way that those types of plants are going to be struck from the thunder or the voice. Remember, the word thunder is the voice of the hail. How the hail will affect and damage. And we're going to learn about anybody who's spared from the kol, from the voice of slander. Now let me just read to you a translation that I wrote. So basically we're going to hear two things. Those who are harmed by the outcry of the slanderers are going to be represented by the plants that resembled them. We're going to see the character of the plants, and that's, right, it resembled them, which were smitten by the hail that was accompanied by thunder, by the Lashon Hara. And we're going to learn about all those who were spared from the voice of the slanderer. They're going to be represented by those plants that resemble them who were spared from the thunder that accompanied them. Okay? So we're prepared to hear the greatest secret of all life. Kime, how you do? It's well known. Shemin bale halashon mikablim nezik shtei kitot. That basically the type of people that receive damage from Lashon Hara, there's two types. So now we're talking about the types that actually receive damage. There's two types. The first kat achat, the first group, Heim habakurim b'mala, the very prominent people, well displayed. Asher rabim konim pogim behem, where the masses are jealous and they attack them. Hamitkanim begoydel malatam, because of the great envy they have towards their stature. And not only that, sheligoydel malatam biyoterheim mitpali min lashon hara. The greater their stature, the greater they're going to be affected by the Lashon Hara. La'afuke, this comes to exclude mishu min katane hama'alos. This excludes those who are lower in stature. Ein mitkanim behem kolchach. Nobody's really jealous of them. Vein sholchim behem kolchach chetz l'shono. People are not sending the arrows of their tongue. In other words, our tongue is like a bullet, right? Like an arrow. So the less prominent, the lower stature you are, but they're not free. They're not free. They're just not as affected by Lashon Hara. Im timso lomar shechitzav nechasu boy. Remember, every bullet has a target, okay? So every arrow will find its target. Nevertheless, eno mitpa'el kochach. But because they are so low, it's not going to have such an effect. The eno mazik lo kochach, so the damage isn't that great. K'moshe mazik haloshon le'anshe mala. It's certainly not as great as the Lashon Hara damages the more prominent people. Asher lehem mishpat habakura, because of their privilege. Hayoshvim rishonim b'malchut shamayim, and like the ones who are at the forefront in the heavenly kingdom. That's how this is translated. They're going to get it the worst. They have a chance to getting it the worst. Halomida zu mitzui barabat b'nei amenu. This character trait is not really found that much. We're talking about the lower. It is not really found that much by many of our own people. Kibali halashon hishmiu einaki kol ish chayil rav pa'alim. Because the slanderers, they make heard, and therefore they carry their voice, and no one is really exempt. It's really hard to find anybody who's exempt of anybody who's of great accomplishment and character. If you're out there on the front lines doing things, it's really hard to hide. And their tongues bring down even the highest walls. There's hardly any protection. V'kol erez odir bilvanon yakvuhu tolos Yaakov. Okay, this is a very interesting way of trying to express it. But even the mightiest of cedar of Lebanon, they end up rotting. They'll end up rotting by the worm of Yaakov, which is basically a concept of the Jewish people. It's going to affect us all. That's the first group. What about the second group? They stand up against them, against people who speak Lashon Hara without any flexibility, like those stalks. They don't submit by listening to the abuse and by not replying. But they want to stand up against them and reply to them against their abuse. And they actually, some of them take a lofty status. They take a lot of pride in going against them. Kizot komato domosa letamar. This is like the stature of a palm tree. As biyoter lashon hara mazik. These people are even hurt more because they don't know when to stop. They go up against these people. V'nitzu min lashon hara who mean. Do you know who gets saved? You know who's going to be. So those are the two groups that get hurt. Who gets saved? V'nitzu min lashon hara. Okay, guys, you ready for this? This is very important. Who's saved from lashon hara? Mishu min hama'afilim. Those who are inconspicuous, out of the limelight. She'ena marim es atzmam b'fnei brios. They don't flaunt themselves in front of people. Lekaye mashnemar. If you look in Isaiah 26:2, they don't do this. I'm sorry. This is what you should do. Go, my people, enter your chambers and shut the door behind you. Hide yourself for a while until the indignation is past. Ami bo b'chadarecha chavi kimat rega ad ya'avur za'am. Until the anger or indignation is past. That's what you should do. That's what they should fulfill. Af al pi shechet shechutz l'shonam. Even though, as you find in Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 7, that the tongue is a sharpened arrow, and you're in the most inner rooms, you're hiding inside room after room after room, right? And the arrow can pass by several walls. Hayoshe bechedre chadarim, one who sits in the innermost rooms. The nitzo mikol klei zayin, he can be saved from any type of weapon. Mikol makom eno nitzo mibale chitzimelo. Even though perhaps he might not be completely protected, okay, from those who possess these arrows, nevertheless, Hatzalah porta mihu have, he'll find some relief. Kishen adam mitra'eha bifneihem b'malotav, when a man is not confronting them with all of his virtues, ve'eno meshiv l'mcharpo davar, and you're not responding to the person's abuse. In other words, someone's abusing you, keep silent. I'll tell you this thing. When it's personal, you keep silent. When it's against God, you have no right to be silent. So most of it, oh yeah, we're sticking up for God. It's not. It's usually personal. And if it's personal, move on your way. Keep quiet. But take it. When it's about God, you have no right. You have to stand up. Okay, so that's going to be the biggest trick, to know when. Okay. V'yeh ke'ish asher eno shomea. You have to act as if you're a person who doesn't hear. I mean, I hear everything, and it affects me. You have to make it as if you did not hear it. L'chach sipur lano Torah. That's why the Torah tells us this whole story. That what? The flax and the barley were smitten, because the barley had ripened, and the flax stood erect. Hapishta v'hasara nukasa, ki hasara odiv v'hapishta givo. Was fine. Kasha. So we're still stuck with a question. What in the world does that verse mean? My kamash malan. If it's coming to teach me. Shilafi shachita v'hakosemet. Look in verse chapter 9, verse 32. It's talking about the wheat and the spelt were not affected. We're not smitten. Al kain hichbit paro es libo. You're going to tell me then Pharaoh hardened his heart? Nevertheless, why does the Torah need to tell me why these were smitten and why these were not smitten? Because it's coming to teach me something. It's coming to hint to us. Keshem shikul halashon mazik livkore mala v'lamod kenegdam gvul. Just like the voice of the slanderer does damage to the most eminent and to those that stand up against. So we're talking about the ripe barley and the hard flax. They will be damaged. Kach huku min kol habarad apishta basara. So too, the voice, the thunder of the barad, and will affect the flax and the barley. Ki hasara aviv, because it's ripened. V'apishta gvul, we said the flax was in the stalk. It's standing strong and hard, stubbornly. But when it comes to the chita, the kusemet, when it comes to the wheat and the flax, they're not damaged. Ki kach hamafilim atzma, because they lowered themselves. Ve'ena nir lebrios malatam, they did not show off to the world their great advantages and virtues. V'oisenes atzmam kalo shomim, they made themselves that they didn't hear. V'ilu lo nuku, and these were not damaged. V'chein yidbar b'zer shem parshas kiteitzei, on a verse, listen to this, when we get to the Parsha Kiteitzei, there's a verse in Deuteronomy 23:14. When you go out to war, you have to bring a shovel. You know why you have to bring a shovel? Because there's not supposed to be any evil in the camp. You're not supposed to speak Lashon Hara. That's what it means, evil. But there's another shot, and that's on a practical level. The bathroom, the outhouse is not allowed to be in the camp. Every soldier has to carry a shovel. You don't go to the bathroom where you're going to be dug into the ground or to your camp. But the shovel idea here, we'll have to look at it further. But the yeter tiyelecha al azonecha, it's very interesting because of, well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it deeper when we get to it. But the lesson learned is shtika. Shtika is silence, is ikar klizeno shel adam lenatzeach bo es mecherpov. That the silence is the main weapon of a person in order to be victorious against those who taunt him or her. Okay, we're getting down to the wire. And guess what? Now we're able to answer that certain verse that I'm only alluding to now. Kitseiti et ta'ir efrosh es kapai el Hashem. Moses says, you know, Pharaoh begged him, please stop the barad, and Moses says, okay, as soon as I leave the city, I'll spread out my hands. Why did he have to leave the city? Rashi says, because it was full of idols. How can Moses pray in a place that's full of idols? The question one should ask, why is it specifically this makkah? What about the other ones? Didn't he also pray and he had to leave the city? Yes, the truth is he did it, but it's only mentioned here. Moses would not pray in the city that Pharaoh was in. He left the city, but specifically this plague, it's mentioned. The question is why? Clear as mud, the question? Even though it's very simple, one can say, for sure Moses was concerned and made sure to leave the city. But it wasn't necessary for Moses to tell Pharaoh that he was leaving the city. He didn't have to tell him when he was davening, praying in the city or outside the city, except for this one. Why? Because it says in chapter 9, verse 28, there had been too much of God's thunder and hail. Pharaoh himself was disturbed and in shock because of the hail, the thunder. So what do we hear from this? That Pharaoh was so in shock because of the sound, he wanted it to stop immediately. So Moses, by any other plague, he could stop it immediately, no big deal. But listen to this. Moses needed to tell him that he wasn't able to stop it immediately. He had to leave the city first. Only there he would pray to Hashem. Even nevertheless, according to the way we've been learning it so far, it was a hint to him. It was the actual tongue. It was the speech of Pharaoh that caused the whole problem to start with. God had removed himself from the presence of Pharaoh. And therefore, because of this person who spoke Lashon Hara, namely Pharaoh, God was not in his presence. He didn't want to appear even to Moses. God did not want to appear even to Moses the whole time that he was in close proximity to Pharaoh. Because it says he removes himself from the Bali Lashon Hara, which we already saw, or we'll see shortly. Al Derek Shamar Chazal. Here it is. Anybody who speaks Lashon Hara, God says, Ein ani v'hu. There's no place for me and you, Yecholim l'dor echad. We cannot dwell together. As it says in Psalms 101, verse 5. He who slanders his neighbor in secret, I will destroy. Okay? Melashni b'sei sereyu oto atzmi. The word oto. Him I will destroy. Listen to this. He says, Don't read it oto, him, but with him. Meaning, I cannot be with him. Kitseiti et ha'ir efroshes kapai el Hashem. It's only once I leave the city I can spread my hands towards Hashem, because the city is full of idols. We spoke during the break. Is a Jew, is a Ben Noach for that matter, allowed to enter a interfaith setting, a church, a mosque? Well, it depends what is considered idol worship or not. So that's a whole discussion. There's a gamut. How much Christianity or Islam is or is not considered idol worship. Okay, that's not for now, but that was the discussion we had this morning. Ki kamosh shalach bo kol magefotav. That, remember we're saying, actually let me just stop here. It says malei gelulim. We're talking about that the city was full of idols. So too, for I would send all of my plagues, because the language, Lashon Hara, because someone who speaks Lashon Hara, right, evil speech, is Magdil Avonos Keneged, that his sin is magnified to equal all three: idol worship, sexual immorality, and murder. Kakisker Lashon Malaya Gelulim. That's why it says it was full of idols. Laharos, to teach you, 1 second, the word Gelulim does not only mean idols, it also means feces. It was full of filth. Laharos, to teach you that this chet, kolel Gelulim harbe, this sin includes all types of filth. Mamele koler b'kol minei Gelulim, that the city was filled with all types of filth. Okay, we got 4 lines left, and then we can take a breath and discuss this further. Some say that Moses needed to pray in the field. Remember, in the city there's no fields, and we're talking about the barads coming down. Makom shamakim mishameshet biyoter. If he goes to the field, there's a lot of hail. Did you know wherever the Jews went, there was no hail? You could be walking on one side of the street, no hail. The other side, where the Egyptians are, it's hailing. So it didn't matter. Moses can go out. He didn't want to go to someone's house to make it look like he was trying to get away from the hail. He dafka went to the field. Nira Olomar, it seems further that Husrak Lomar could say to Etayir, when I go out of the city, Shula Yichashtu Paro, so Paro doesn't suspect Shemiyira Takolos, Barad Yelek Leza Bias Luspaleo, that Moses needed to escape, protection. That he was afraid of the thunder and the hail, that he went to someone's house to pray. That's why he says, when I leave the city, to show him the greatness of the miracle, that anywhere that Moses placed his feet, there was no hail. Okay, I want to wish everyone a good Shabbos, and we should all take to heart the lessons. Of course, we want the protection, but we want the relationship with Hashem. So whatever gets us there, and we take to heart everything that we learned tonight, and I wish you a good Shabbos.
Shama shir shir